Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we have multiple weather warnings for ice and rain over the coming days, as we are going to see fairly stormy conditions arrive from the west as the jet stream does finally properly break through. As we progress through the rest of this week, we see multiple batches of very heavy rain accompanied by some stronger winds and progressively getting milder as well, and we'll be able to see that in detail on the latest UKV. As we go into the longer range, as we head towards the middle of the month, we'll have a look at the latest from the GFS, GM, Eastern WF and the Ensembles, because it is looking fairly westerly, at least for the next week to 10 days. Things could change in the longer term. We are seeing hints of that within some of the operational runs over the past 24 hours and within some of the ensembles, and it could be showing the return to blocking, maybe cold weather as we progress towards the Christmas period. But at this stage, it is just hints, just suggestions, and we'll look at that in detail in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see it's actually a pretty dry picture through this evening. Still got some drizzly rain across parts of England here, as we did see that low pressure eventually withdraw into Europe, but as it has done, it has actually pulled in a pretty cold easterly wind. Again, nothing crazy, but drawn some of that Arctic air that we had last week back in. Now, it does mean that tonight temperatures are going to drop away very quickly. As I said, drier at the moment, clearer skies in places, and the temperatures already starting to fall quite rapidly further northwards and westwards, where we're likely to reach -2 or 3 degrees for many rural areas, and towns and cities could get down below freezing, but more likely further northwards you are, because at the southeast at the moment, still got some cloud and drizzle around, which will hold those temperatures up. So a widespread frost for most, but still there could be some areas that do stay above freezing this evening. But it is one night, it is a bit of a blip, as things are going to be staying much milder for all permanently over the next few days. Now, do look at the latest weather warnings as we progress through this evening. We've got ice warnings issued for parts of Scotland. We've got here for the far northeast and one here for the far southeast. Again, ice patches until 11 a.m. tomorrow. There's a risk of some wintry showers in places and generally just cold temperatures. It's giving the risk of ice. Again, quite unusual to see these very small warnings issued in very localised areas, but I think it's because there is the risk of a few odd showers here, as we can see on the live radar. With this easterly wind coming in, there is the risk of a few showers up towards northeast of Scotland and towards parts of southern Scotland here, southeastern Scotland. That's primarily why these ice warnings have been issued. As we progress into Wednesday, we still got those ice warnings issued for those areas in Scotland. We've got a rain warning, though, issued for parts of Northern Ireland from 7 p.m. tomorrow until 4 a.m. on Thursday. And as we'll see in a minute, there are more rain warnings issued for Thursday. Could see 20 to 30 millimetres in many areas, 40 to 60 millimetres possible, maybe as high as 60 to 80 millimetres. High likelihood lower end of the impact matrix. Again, the ground is still fairly saturated after a pretty wet autumn so far. Yes, it's been quite a bit dry the last couple of weeks, but the ground is still very saturated, so could cause some issues. And then as we head into Thursday, we've got more widespread rain warnings. We've got one for eastern Scotland here from 6 a.m. on Thursday until midnight on Thursday. Again, with 30 to 50 millimetres, maybe as much as 70 to 100 millimetres. We've got one for southern Scotland here, from midnight on Thursday until 6 p.m. on Thursday. And again here, 30 to 50 millimetres possible, with some thawing snow that could come into the equation, 70 to 90 millimetres in some of the worst impacted areas. And then these rain warnings issued for much of South Wales and for southwest England, again from midnight Wednesday night through to Thursday, and then expiring Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Again, 30 to 40 millimetres quite widely, could see as much as 60 to 80 millimetres. Again, the impact matrix has this medium likelihood, lower end of the impact scale. So we will just have to see exactly what does entail. But for all, it is looking pretty horrible, pretty stormy as we head into Thursday. These areas are going to see the most amounts of disrupted rain. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see all that rain earlier today slowly petered out and moved back in towards Europe, and it's been going to be a fairly dry night, and that's why those temperatures are going to plummet. But you can see from the west, it doesn't last too long, and by tomorrow afternoon, the rain is starting to approach. It could be quite a cold day for many tomorrow, with a bit of trapped fog Could even see an ice day in a few localised areas. But the westerly winds are returning, and it is going to be turning milder and more unsettled. You see that the rain moves in, could see some initial snow on its leading edge through the early hours of Thursday, could wake up to kind of dumping in places over the hills, but by the late morning to the afternoon for the second round of rain, as the cold front eventually sweeps through, it is likely to be all rain, as we are in generally much milder air. Yes, cold front is moving in, bringing a little bit chillier conditions behind it, but much milder and way too mild for any snow. So you see through much of Thursday lots of heavy rain. It's going to be pretty miserable indeed, and it continues to stay fairly unsettled and stormy through Friday. For as we head into Saturday, could see a brief respite in the morning for another area of rain moves in, and this just looks like the recipe for the next 5 days or so, and maybe perhaps even beyond. Also, it's going to be fairly windy as we progress into Wednesday and Thursday. Gusts getting up towards 50, 60, maybe even a localised 70 miles per hour. It's nothing ridiculous, no named storm potential, but generally pretty blustery, stormy conditions overall. And you can see that does continue all the way through Friday into Saturday, where things could die down a little bit. Max temperatures, you can see overnight, this afternoon temperatures were pretty chilly, only around the 6 or 7 degree mark. As we progress into tonight, temperatures dropping down to widely below freezing, maybe a -5 degrees there, or maybe even -10 across parts of Scotland. Tomorrow afternoon, temperatures again really struggling ahead of that weather front, maybe only 3 or 4 degrees, could even be an ice day for parts of northern England and Scotland, but it isn't going to last too long. It's going to be one anomalous day, and things is going to turn a lot milder. See, through Wednesday afternoon into the evening, does turn very cold around the 5-6 p.m. point, but slowly rising through the evening as we see rain arriving from the west. By Thursday afternoon, still could be chilly as we've got a trapped layer of cold air at the surface, but as we head into Friday, looking at widely up towards 8 to 10 degrees further southwards, and even well above freezing further northwards as well. And that continues into the weekend, where again it's not amazingly mild, but could see a 12 or 13 degrees somewhere in the southwest. So it's not turning balmy or a straight southerly or anything crazy, not winter heat wave, but definitely turning average to above average for all, potentially, as I said, getting towards the low teens as we progress into the weekend. Now, to have a look at the sort of overall spectrum as we head into the next couple of weeks, from the latest GFS, you can see again westerly winds continue to come in from the Atlantic, very unsettled, horrible conditions coming in, and that is going to give rise to those weather warnings over the next couple of days. As we progress beyond that, you do see low pressure do come a bit more strung out, which will mean they will lose their intensity, but the wind direction still does rain in from the west, so it will stay fairly unsettled still. Beyond that, high pressure continues to try and ridge northwards, and that is something that a lot of the models are suggesting in the longer term here. Actually settles us down with a slack easterly flow. Could turn us colder in the longer term, but here it sort of topples away, and we kind of go in between weather systems. No blocking appearing, but a slow area of low pressure approaching from the Atlantic. So very interesting seeing that. Again, if we look over the northern hemisphere, you can see some elongation within these lows diving around. So definitely some signals of some blocking, maybe colder weather developing in the long term. But at this stage, nothing within the reliable time frame. Again, I'll just draw back to the 6 o'clock run from last night. You can see what I mean by a bit of extension of the high pressure. And you can see a bitterly cold northerly wind does arrive here. Again, absolutely ridiculous northerly wind. Look at those 850 HP temperature equivalent, potential equivalent temperatures there would be turning bitterly cold with a -10 isotherm coming in. Again, no guarantees that this would happen, but this is the sort of output we are starting to see hinted at right at the extended range of these runs as we progress towards the latter part of December, towards that Christmas period. Now, if you look at the latest GM, again, westerly winds continue to come in off the Atlantic, staying pretty unsettled, but as I said, low pressure coming a bit more elongated into next week, which will mean the air masses change a little bit slower, weather fronts slightly weaker, winds lighter as well. And as we progress towards day 10, high pressure tries to build in, and again, it's kind of in between. We're not seeing a strong barrage of westerly winds. Blocking is trying to push in, but you see the tropospheric polar vortex is pretty strong. It would take a pretty decent area of high pressure to penetrate that. So yeah, as I said, kind of I'm very uncertain at the day 10 here, not showing any distinct weather patterns, generally a westerly flow, chilly conditions actually in terms of the upper air temperatures, and again could be some frosts under the higher pressure, but nothing majorly cold at this stage. If we compare to the eastern WF, which is just coming out as I speak, again you can see generally a westerly flow over the coming days, a little bit more elongated low pressure systems, high pressure trying to build in by day 10, and again a pretty much flat westerly. And because the high pressure is slightly further southwards, it's a little bit more of a milder westerly here. Again, nothing ridiculous, above average, yes, but really only sort of 2 to 4 degrees above average. And again, could go anywhere from this situation. The high pressure could head northwards, or it could stay further southwards. The westerly winds could completely take over, or we could see this even go up towards Scandinavia. So we will just have to see. But all the runs today are poised at day 10 to change the pattern, but for the next week it is remaining very unsettled, potentially very stormy over the next few days before things could become a little less unsettled into next week. But still, I'd say generally looking at it, it will be rain and wind around. If we finish by looking at the latest ensembles, if we do start on the latest GFS, again you can see it's going to be above average as we head into next week, or over the next few days into next week, with lots of rain around. Generally, as I said, pretty stormy, unsettled conditions. Beyond that, as we progress around the sort of 13th, 14th of December, so in around a week's time into early next working week, temperatures do start to drop again, and this is where the risk of cooler weather starts to return. Again, nothing major, just generally dipping more towards average or below average here, and there are some very cold runs in the longer term, and generally a drying trend, so definitely setting up a little bit more of a change there, maybe back towards more settled, colder conditions. But as I said, it's just hints at this stage, and we're not seeing any major consistency from the models. TV's temperatures are going to be very much up over the next sort of week, and then dropping, as I said, into the longer term, and that'll be the same with the dew points, again up and then down. Means the next week or so, apart from tonight really, we're not looking at the risk of any major frosts at all. So going to be a bit of a change from the last week where we've seen pretty much persistent frosts most evenings. And finally, if we look at the latest ECMWF, the midnight run is the latest run we've got. And again, a very similar trend, above average over the next week, and then generally dipping back towards average with some cold runs, but equally some mild runs into the longer term, and a slight drying trend. So again, hints higher pressure could be making a return. So it's looking pretty horrible over the next few days. We're coming straight out of a pretty cold and snowy spell for some to a very unsettled, stormy spell for northern and western areas. It doesn't look great over the next few days. Most days it's going to have a lot of heavy rain around and gusty winds, as I said, further westwards. But as I said, next week things, yes, still going to remain westerly, still going to remain fairly unsettled, but it should be less rainfall around. Wind should be lighter, and there should be some breaks in the rain. So it should be a little bit better, but still probably generally pretty mild. So as I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.